All right, well, Dayton, first of all, thank you for giving us your time.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Well, when there's an ownership change, it doesn't usually come out of the blue, but this one seemed to come out of the blue. And I won't ask you when the date was that you found out, but when that was, what was your first reaction?
Well, I mean, probably like many around the organization when they first heard the news. I mean, you know, one of shock. It's something that you don't necessarily expect. Although, as you know, Ryan, in this business, I mean, it moves really, really quick. But you know, it's been a different year, that's for sure. This process has been going on since before spring training started. Okay. You know, let me say that. Okay. And so, but it became obviously a little more final the other day.
And I'll imagine you have a lot of time to reflect back on what it meant to work for the Glass family and all the ups and downs and the World Series championship. I mean, is there one recurring memory that just keeps coming up when you think about the Glass family?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, when I think of, you know, Mr. Glass and their entire family, I think of people that have great integrity, always were committed to doing it the right way. They made sure everybody in our front office knew that it was family first and the Kansas City Royals second. Made it very easy to come to work each and every day and to represent the Kansas City Royals in this community around the baseball world because of our fondness, you know, for Mr. Glass and his family. But I think this kind of sums it up right here, really, of what Mr. Glass is about. So last Friday, the announcement is made that there's a deal in place with Mr. John Sherman, and I get a phone call in the dugout, and so I escape to the home plate side of the dugout. I take the call. Yes, Mr. Glass, everything going okay? He says, yeah, everything's going fine. He said, did you read the news on Tyler Skaggs? And I said, well, I'm aware of the report. I haven't had a chance to read the story in detail yet. He says, well, make sure you do. Mm-hmm. And I want you to make sure that all of our trainers and all of our players understand the harmful effects of what opioids and painkillers and those types of drugs can do and the effect that they can have on a player and their family. Mm. And nothing about the ownership change. It was just full steam ahead, the business of the Royals, the business of trying to make sure that we help our players, help our organization to continue to grow and get better.
I've told people over the years, and the longer I do this and the longer you do this, our access to the owner was so unique with Mr. Glass. And you have a lot of friends in the business who are general managers who have some sort of relationship with their owner. What was unique about, comparing to others as far as you know, the general manager-owner relationship between you and Mr. Glass?
Accessibility.
Okay.
And in communication, you know, constant communication, being able to discuss whatever needs to be discussed, full transparency, working both ways, and that really that's the only way that you can, you know, get things accomplished in a way that is professional, that's meaningful, and that's productive, is to have that transparent relationship. Never an insecure feeling, never a day of insecurity working here with Mr. Glass and Dan, and as I said, representing their family. But you know, and the last thing I would want to say is, there's no way Mr. Glass would ever sell this team unless he found the most perfect owner. I know that for a fact. He shared with me that you know, for the last 2 years, when I began to discuss those things, you know, with him personally, as it you know, possibly, you know, what the succession plan might be here someday. And sure enough, I mean, he reached out to the one person that he felt that would best represent the Kansas City Royals, our fan base, the legacy of this great organization, and he found that person in John Sherman.
Dayton, in the offseason after 2012, you made a big trade in getting James Shields and Wade Davis. We didn't know what Wade Davis would become at that time, but I remember your thinking behind it was, we've done enough developing, we need to start winning at the major league level. And in 13, we were in it until the last week of the season, and then 14, the great run began. Is this offseason similar? Is it time to make one of those deals, or is there still some more development?
Well, that's a great question. Of course, there's always going to be development that has to take place at the major league level. You're always learning. You're always making adjustments. These players are faced with the toughest competition their peer group has to offer, the toughest competition in the entire world. So you're constantly making adjustments, as we know, and developing. And that's why it's so important to have a major league coaching staff that understands that there's a lot of development that has to take place and is willing to work and commit to making players better. We have that, and we will continue to have that. But it's an interesting question. You don't know what players are going to be available to you this offseason. I do not see us trading, one of our top prospects at this point in time, like we did, with Will Myers. I made the comment then. I'll make the comment now. If Will Myers would have been in the major leagues, and Mike Moustakas or Eric Hosmer would have been in the minor leagues, if the timelines would have been different for those players, either Moose or Haas perhaps would have been traded, during that period of time. I don't see us doing that right now. We're in a little different stage. I like the fact that we have several players I think are becoming consistent producing major league players. Certainly what Jorge Soler has done, what Hunter Dozier has done. Mondi, obviously, he's back on this team right now. Losing him for the 6-7 week period was disappointing. And what Whit Merrifield continues to do is very encouraging. We'll get Salvi back next year, of course. Nicky Lopez, I think, has done a really good job. He started off strong. He had about a 5-week period there where he was struggling a little bit. Now he's picked it up. He's played consistently. He looks like he belongs in my viewpoint, and he's fearless defensively. He's not afraid to make mistakes, and so I think he's got a lot of upside there. We'll see how he turns out. But again, we'll see. We'll evaluate the landscape, see what players are available for us. We feel really good about the future for a lot of reasons, and but we'll see what this offseason presents.